COVID is kind of over. I don't know. Fauci says we're out of the pandemic phase, but there's still COVID, right? There's still COVID out there. There'll always be COVID out there. Different variants. They are still pushing what you could dub hysteria very easily, I think. They're saying that children were hit. I saw this from NBC News, Clay. Children hit especially hard by Omicron just because there were a lot of cases among kids. Okay, how sick do kids get? It's a sniffle for 99 I think literally over 99% of children. I think it's 99.999% of kids. It's a sniffle. But they're writing about it like, oh my gosh, kids were hit so hard by Omicron. They're completely insane. But we need accountability, friends. You see, the Democrats don't want to do accountability on all this because they were pretty much wrong about everything. And they cost people a lot, too. This wasn't wrong, but there was no downside. The loss of learning that occurred because of the completely unnecessary school shutdowns that Democrats dragged out, bowed to the teachers' unions. It was appalling what they did. If you were a parent anywhere in the country and your kids were out of school in the 2021 school year, blame the Democrat Party and vote. Do something about this. Do something about the people that disrupted and honestly just made your life more difficult with no real scientific backing for it. Clay and I have also been pushing for the restoration of people to their jobs who were fired because they refused to get a vaccine. That, remember, they keep changing their justifications. They shift what they say about these things to suit their political needs in the moment. The initial storyline that they gave us was that you must get the shot. It's not up to you, because if you don't, you're risking other people's health. That's just not true. The shot was highly ineffective at stopping spread. In fact, Dr. Birx, and we'll get to her in a second because I saw her on Fox today. I was a little upset, Clay, a little bit. Not that she was on Fox, that's fine, but with what she said, it's like, whoa, hold on a second. Because she's still pushing for masks on planes, and I mean, the whole thing. It was absolutely insane. They said that the shot would stop the spread. It didn't. They fired people who didn't get the shot. And here's, for example, a New York City mayor, Eric Adams, who is a huge disappointment to anybody who was hoping for a good mayor already. Play 15.
Some 1,400 city employees were terminated because they weren't vaccinated. Do you see them being able to get their jobs back at some point? Or is that rules in place?
That rule is in place. What did we say to those over 300,000 New York City employees that understood we were in a dangerous time, the city needed them, they stepped up, they did the right thing, even those who had uncertainty. And I really take my hat off to them, because without them, we would not have gotten through COVID.
I don't know if he's a moron on the issue of COVID entirely, or if this is just the politics demand this of him. But it's vindictive. This is stupid. Yeah. It's indefensible.
They should immediately rehire anyone who turned down the COVID shot. And I'm glad, Buck, we're one of the few places. I can't believe this hasn't gotten more attention. The CDC came out, and I know we don't trust the CDC to be very good at their job, but they managed to do, finally, one of these recent studies of kids to find out what percentage of them had COVID antibodies. And I saw you tweeting about this, Buck, and I just want to continue to bring it home because these facts matter. 75% of kids under the age of 18, right, minors, have COVID antibodies right now. Yet right now, Buck, they are trying to get 5 to 11-year-olds to get a COVID booster shot. Let me repeat that. My kids, and I like many parents, my kids matter more to me than anything in the whole wide world. My kids have not gotten the COVID shot. I haven't gotten them COVID antibody tested, but given the fact that my wife and I have both had COVID, and I've had it twice, I would be stunned if they aren't among the 75% of kids with COVID antibodies right now. But Buck, who are these parents? When you hear that data, by the way, almost all of them were 100% fine. I bet the vast majority of these kids never even knew they had COVID at all, okay? Who are these parents who are getting a booster shot for their 5-year-old when the 5-year-old has probably already had COVID and is 100% fine? How much are we going to over-medicate these young kids who have zero risk? Your kindergartner is not, fortunately, in danger from COVID. And if you have a kid of any age, 75% of them, at least, according to the most recent COVID data, have antibodies. They had it. 3 out of every 4 kids had it and has recovered from it, meaning they have natural immunity, which has been proven to be oftentimes far more valuable than the COVID shot. I mean, is this crazy to you, Buck? You don't have kids, but if you had a 5-year-old, who are these parents that are getting 5-year-olds booster shots?
They just can't think for themselves, honestly, at this point. Or they're just not aware. They're ignorant of the data, the risk factors, and the reality here of what's going on. I mean, it's so apparent, right? You just had Kamala Harris, who's fine. She is going to have a light sniffle for a couple of days, okay? Just like everybody else in her age group and in her, her basic risk factors is basically fine, okay? There's no guarantees in life, but she got 4 shots. 4.
Yeah.
And she's not done. That's the whole point. You're not done. Remember
she's going to keep getting them, and she's had it now multiple times, I think, too, right?
Yeah, and remember in the beginning of this, we were saying, guys, it's basically we're in a flu paradigm with something that is more dangerous to old people than the flu, true. But we should handle it the way we handle the flu, which is try to protect those who are at risk and go and live your life. I mean, the rest of this was all insane. And that's why Dr. Birx has said recently, she's trying to sell a book. Remember, she was kind of Fauci's number 2 for a while there, and it was the Trump task force. Folks, we got to be honest about all these things. It was hard. I give a pass in the first 60 days, maybe in the first 90 days for Trump leaning on the public health service. He was better over the summer and into the fall, and clearly was better than Biden turned out to be on these issues. But I think he should have fired Fauci. I'm just going to say, I think we could talk about reality here and what really happened. But Birx was right there with him. She resigned, you remember, because she got caught in a moment of social distancing from family member hypocrisy, and then got all huffy about it. Like, well, I had a house to sell, and I had to be with my family members for the right. Everybody else are being told, sorry, you got a family member who's dying in the hospital. Maybe we'll get you on a Zoom call. Too bad for you. But Dr. Birx had a house to sell anyway. She is. She also said that she wished that we had gone more into an Italy style. She just said this more into an Italy style lockdown in the beginning of this, as if we didn't lock down hard enough is something that anyone who is not a sociopath would say it. That's what she's saying. Here she is, too, trying to trash a little bit, I think, the Trump White House situation.
You say you considered quitting at one point. Why did you decide to stay?
Well, for one thing, there was no one else in the White House. Tony and Bob and Steve Hahn were in their respective agencies and working as hard as they possibly could. And that's also what I wanted to show in the book, how hard people were working to really make a difference. Someone had to be there to constantly get the information out, the correct data, what needed to be done. And that was the thing that was the kind of schizophrenic nature of the White House. At one point, the president is saying this, and I'm funding and he's writing defense production to do this. And so as long as we were able to move the ball closer and closer to the goalpost, I felt it was valuable for me to stay.
Can I just say, I don't need to hear about how hard you were working in the White House at the beginning of the pandemic, okay? We've got people that have served 10 tours in war zones for this government and taken real risks. Oh, it was so hard in the West Wing and in the White House in those early. I was working such long hours. I'm sorry, man. All these health bureaucrats, I think you would have said it, I said this on Twitter. I think it's true. It's like in the movie Armageddon, if NASA was put in charge of everyone's life and made them do all these things, and then the asteroid actually hit the world anyway. And it's like, well, what do we do this for?
That's exactly right. And by the way, you want to talk about hard and how difficult people have had it. There's still millions of people who don't have the jobs. We still, for all the Biden bragging, which is what he's trying to do now. I saw a tweet from him this morning. He's talking about how many great jobs he's created since he became president. We're still almost 2 million people unemployed, below where we were when everything shut down for 15 days to stop the spread over 2 years ago now. We still haven't got those same jobs back.
To be fair, Clay, Biden knows how to create jobs. He just knows how to create them for his son at the behest of Chinese oligarchs and corrupt Russian energy companies. But hey, the Hunter Jobs program worked really well. Apparently $5 million of Joe Biden income that might need an explanation, too. Some folks mad seeing that headline.